let's get started just with the last little bit of class here. We'll look at 2 problems and then bring this back. We'll look at more of this tomorrow. Some of these get pretty challenging. All these, I believe, are multiple step except for maybe a couple. And that makes them more challenging at first, but you're also getting a lot more practice every single time you go through one because you're having to look at multiple angle relationships and really get good practice with identifying some of these. Okay, so if we look at number 9, you can see we've got a couple of triangles there. The rule that you always need to be aware of is that if you are solving for this unknown angle at the top, this question mark, you're going to have to start at the opposite end of the diagram and work toward it. We already mentioned something to that effect another day, but that's what we've got going on. So I'm going to look at that triangle at the bottom. I know 2 of the angles, and that means I can solve for this third one up here. I'll put the x kind of on the inside of it. I'm going to name it x. That's not the angle I'm going for in the end, but I do need to solve for that first. So what rule lets me calculate the value of x? There you go, TST. If we know 2 angles, then you can almost automatically, there are some exceptions, but you can almost automatically just calculate with triangle sum theorem. So I'm going to go ahead and show this real quick. Here's TST, which says that 20 plus 40 plus my unknown angle x, those are the 3 interior angles of that triangle, they all add up to 180. And
then you can use the vertical.
Well, yeah, we'll do that here in just a second. So I got 20 and 40 is 60. So subtract the 60 from both sides. X is 120. Pretty straightforward. And I'll go ahead and write that in now. 120 degrees. And like Ethan was getting at, if you heard him, we are going to have to use multiple angle relationships. Before we do that, is everyone good with what we've done right here? Yeah, so it's a really basic triangle sum theorem problem. 2 angles are given, solve for the third, and then we can move on. Okay, so what angle relationship was it that you just pointed out that we have here? We've got vertical angles. We're going to have to go back to that first batch. Remember, this is combining all of the things we know so far, mostly related to the triangle rules, but some of the older ones. So 120 degrees right here, and then this angle, these are vertical angles. So I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to say vertical angles and then draw a line right here. There's not any work to show. I do know that these 2 are equal, so if it's 120 at the bottom, it's going to be 120 at the top. Are you guys still with me on this? All right. And here's the goal for today. As long as these steps as we go through them are making sense, it's okay if you don't feel like you could go through all these steps on your own. We're going to get more practice with it. But as long as each step you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I see that angle relationship. Then you're in good shape. All right, the last step, what do you notice in that top triangle?
Question mark?
There's your question mark right there. What else do we have in the triangle?
Number?
2 numbers, 2 angles that are known. So what can we use to solve for the unknown? TST again. If we know 2 angles, we can solve for the third with triangle sum theorem. So I'll just show triangle sum theorem. Tells me that 120 plus that angle 39 plus our unknown angle, I'll just keep calling it question mark. You can call it a different variable if you want. These all add up to 180. There's only one unknown and then a bunch of other numbers we've plugged in, so now we can actually solve for this. Okay, so 120 and 39 makes 159. And now I can subtract the 159 from both sides. What is our unknown angle? There it is. Okay, So that one involved 3 steps. There was the triangle sum theorem to get us started down at the bottom. There was the vertical angles right here in the middle. No calculation, but we still needed to observe that. And then a triangle sum theorem for the triangle at the top. So you're already seeing the triangle sum theorem will appear quite a bit. Let's jump down to a more complicated one for the last little bit of class. And again, I'm going to walk through kind of the process for solving this. I wanted to look at number 15. Well, I mean, I'm not sure that it makes a big difference. We can go through 13 tomorrow, perhaps. So 15. There's a number of steps here. We have a lot of information. What we're solving for, that unknown, is at the bottom right, which means we're starting at the top left. And right off the bat, can you guys identify any angle relationships? Vertical angles. Very good. I'll just mark that real quick. We got, this is going to be 45. Again, I'm not going to show calculations on this. I'll just say that's vertical angles right here. Okay, and now we've got that 45 down inside the triangle. What are we going to use next? That's another classic triangle sum theorem. I'll go ahead and give this one right here a name. I'll call it angle X. And now let's go ahead and do that. TST, which is 45, that's that angle at the top of the triangle, plus 60 in the bottom left, plus X in the bottom right, all adds up to 180. 45 and 60 makes 105. So that means X equals what? 75 degrees. There it is. Okay, so we'll look at that real quick. We got 75 degrees right here. And we do have to keep moving toward the right, getting closer to our unknown angle. And sure enough, say that again. What did you notice? Angles on a line. If you notice, we do have a line at the bottom. We've got 3 angles on it. I've got 75. I've got 68 right here. And I've got my unknown angle right here. I'll call Y. Right on the inside. So these 3 angles have to add up to 180. Luckily, we know 2 of them, so we can solve for the third, which is unknown. So I'll go ahead and do that down here. Angles on a line. Now this is going to be the same looking equation as our triangle sum theorem, but we're doing different things. I've got 75 plus 68 plus Y equals 180. So it's the same calculation. 75 and 68 is going to be 143. Subtract 143 from both sides. What does Y equal? Yeah, just 37. Okay. There you are. So now we get to the last step. Okay, again, just kind of pay attention to the logic. If each one of these steps is making sense, okay, I see vertical angles. Yes, that's good. I see the triangle sum theorem. We're good with that. Now we did the angles on a line. Hopefully you guys are good with how, why we chose to do that. Now we get to the very last step. This is one that you might not notice right away. Now we do have the 37 and the 100. So we could solve for this other angle right here with triangle sum theorem. All right, something like that. But I want you to notice that this angle, the question mark, is an exterior angle of this triangle. There you go. So what we can notice, and you might not notice it right away, it's not the end of the world if you don't, because you could still do triangle sum theorem, solve for this angle right here, and then what would you call this angle relationship I'm about to mark in red? Yeah, that's still a linear pair, so you could still solve that way. But we're going to skip a step. So these 2 angles have to add up to the exterior angle. So now I can write it like this. EAT, exterior angle of a triangle, tells me that my unknown angle, the exterior one, is going to equal 100 plus 37. Does that make sense? Do you see how we're using that exterior angle rule? Look back at your reference sheet if you need to see that. So now we've got 137 degrees as our final answer. All right. And that's the kind of the downside to these problems, is that they require multiple steps. But the good thing is, if you can get through these problems, then you're getting basically 3 problems worth of practice in every single one of them, or 4. So really good review. We're going to continue doing this tomorrow. Make sure you bring it back, and we'll look at some more of these. Some of them on the back get quite challenging.